Hey there, and welcome back to the British Accent Podcast. I'm Nick, and as always, I'm joined by the brilliant Emily.
Hello, lovely to be here again. And today, we're diving into something a little more tender, something quiet that a lot of us feel, but rarely talk about. The kind of loneliness that doesn't make it into our Instagram stories or WhatsApp statuses.
Exactly. It's not the kind of loneliness that's obvious, like being physically alone all the time. It's the kind that sneaks in even when you're surrounded by people, when you're still replying to messages, still scrolling through feeds, but you feel oddly invisible.
And the strange thing is, social media can make that loneliness worse while making it harder to admit. Because everyone seems busy, connected, fulfilled. So if you're not feeling that, it's easy to think, is it just me?
Yeah, there's this pressure to always be on. Like you've got to keep up a version of yourself that's fun, engaging, always doing something. But no one really posts the quiet evenings when you're sat there wondering why everything feels a bit empty.
It's mad, isn't it? You could be chatting with people in group chats, getting likes on your photos, and still feel this huge gap between the noise and what you're really needing, which is connection, not just communication.
And that's the difference, right? Connection means being seen for who you really are, not just the curated highlight reel. And that sort of connection doesn't always come through a comment section.
Absolutely. Sometimes we think we're connected because our phones are lighting up. But when you put it down, and there's this strange silence, it reminds you that all that digital interaction isn't quite the same as feeling understood.
And I think we've normalized this constant presence online, where you're available 24/7, but emotionally you're not being met. You're talking, but not really sharing anything that matters.
Which makes it even harder to admit when you're lonely. Because how do you say, I feel isolated, when from the outside, it looks like you're in the middle of everything?
Yeah, you almost feel guilty for feeling lonely. Like you're being ungrateful. But loneliness isn't always about lack, it's about disconnection. And even full calendars and full inboxes can't fix that.
Exactly. And the worst part? Sometimes you start doubting your own feelings. Thinking, maybe I'm just being dramatic, when actually your heart's just asking for something a bit more real.
And because we rarely talk about it openly, we end up thinking we're the only ones feeling it. But truth is, most people have moments, if not long stretches, of this quiet loneliness. They just don't mention it.
No, because it doesn't photograph well, does it? There's no aesthetic way to say, I feel disconnected from people. So we don't. We just distract ourselves instead.
Yeah, we throw ourselves into work, we binge watch shows, we scroll, we plan weekends just to feel busy. But none of it really touches the root of it. It's like feeding hunger with cotton wool.
And the irony is, some of the loneliest people are the ones who look the most social online. Because they've learned how to appear connected without actually being close to anyone.
Totally. You can be the life of the group chat and still feel emotionally distant. Because being known takes vulnerability, and that's not something you can always share in a story or a DM.
It's not that we don't want connection. It's that it takes courage. And sometimes we're afraid of being too much, or not enough, or just not liked for who we really are.
Yeah, we think, what if I open up and it pushes people away? So we keep the filters on, literally and emotionally. But that only deepens the loneliness.
And you can't connect deeply if you're always performing. That's what's so exhausting about social loneliness. You're constantly with people, but you're rarely with yourself, let alone letting anyone else in.
It's like being in a room full of mirrors, where you only see versions of yourself reflected back, not people who can truly meet you where you are.
And it makes you start craving slowness. Stillness. Spaces where you don't have to prove anything, or post anything, just exist, really.
Sometimes the cure for loneliness isn't more people, it's more honesty. With yourself first, then with the people who are safe enough to hear it.
Yeah. And maybe fewer interactions, but deeper ones. Like sitting down for a proper chat instead of sending 5-second voice notes back and forth all day.
Or being the one who says, "Actually, I've been feeling off lately." You'd be surprised how many people go, "Me too, I just didn't know how to say it."
We're all waiting for someone else to be real first. But what if we stop waiting and just go first?
It's strange how much power there is in that one move, just being the first to say something real. It breaks the illusion that everyone else has it all together.
Yeah, and it kind of gives people permission to be human again. Like, oh, we're allowed to not be fine. That's a relief.
Sometimes it takes just one honest conversation to shift the whole tone of a friendship. You go from surface level to something that actually matters.
And those are the moments that stay with you. Not the number of likes or how many people viewed your story, but those little pauses where someone truly sees you.
I think part of the loneliness also comes from being too available but not really open. Like, you're always reachable, but rarely reachable in the emotional sense.
Yeah, like your phone's never off, but your heart sort of is. It's protective. Understandable. But it can also backfire.
It makes me think, when was the last time we let someone in, properly? Not just updated them, but invited them into the messy bits.
Probably not recently enough. And yet, when we do, it's usually met with kindness. People are more compassionate than we give them credit for.
Definitely. But we need to slow down to access that. If we're rushing all the time, checking things off, posting, replying, we don't leave room for anything deeper to grow.
And I think loneliness feeds on that pace. It thrives when we're always on the move, but never really arriving, especially not in ourselves.
It's weird how connection often comes when you stop chasing it and just let yourself be still long enough to notice who's already around you.
And who you might have been avoiding reaching out to. Sometimes all it takes is sending one honest message, "Hey, I miss you. Can we talk?"
It doesn't need to be poetic or perfect. Just real. That's what cuts through the noise, the stuff that feels human, unfiltered.
Because at the end of the day, most people aren't looking for more updates. They're looking for something that feels like home, even just for a few minutes.
And maybe the first step to finding that is admitting we need it. Not pretending we're fine all the time. Just saying, "I'm here, and I'd like some company that actually feels like connection."
It sounds simple, but it's probably one of the bravest things you can do.
And it's not about having loads of people around. Sometimes even one person, who really gets you, is enough to make everything feel a bit lighter.
Exactly. It's not quantity, it's depth. You could have hundreds of followers and still feel utterly alone, or have one quiet friendship that makes the whole world feel safer.
And the funny thing is, the people we want to connect with are often waiting too. Waiting for someone else to break the silence first.
It's like we're all standing at opposite ends of the same room, thinking, "I don't want to bother them," when really, we'd both be relieved if someone just waved.
Yeah. And I think sometimes loneliness becomes heavier because we try to pretend it's not there. Like, if we ignore it, it'll pass. But it usually doesn't. It just grows in the quiet.
And pretending everything's fine doesn't really protect us, it just distances us more. Especially from the people who might actually care, if we gave them a chance.
That's such a good point. We think hiding our loneliness is strength, but real strength might be in naming it. Owning it. Saying, "This is how I feel," and letting that be okay.
And it is okay. Being lonely doesn't mean you're broken. It just means you're wired for connection, and you're noticing the absence of it. That's not weakness, it's awareness.
And that awareness can guide us. It's like a signpost saying, "Something meaningful is missing, go look for it, slowly, gently, in the right places."
And those places often aren't where we think they'll be. Sometimes it's in the little things, like a deeper chat with someone you only ever spoke to casually, or being honest in a message instead of saying "all good" by default.
Yeah, or switching off the feed for a bit and letting yourself be bored, be still. That's often when the truth shows up. And maybe even when the real connection begins.
And in that stillness, you realize you're not asking for much. Just to be seen. To be understood. To be met. And that's something we all deserve.
Even if the world online makes it seem like everyone's got it all figured out, beneath it, we're all just humans craving something simple, presence.
And maybe the best thing we can do is offer that to someone else. A message that isn't rushed. A call without multitasking. Just time and attention.
Because giving presence is the start of building real connection. And often, when you offer it, you receive it too.
And I think that's something we forget. That we can create connection. We don't have to wait for it to magically appear. It can be something we build, moment by moment.
Absolutely. We can be intentional. Like choosing to actually reply when someone checks in, instead of just liking the message and moving on.
Or choosing to be the one who checks in first. Even if it feels a bit awkward, even if you haven't spoken in a while, it's worth it.
Sometimes it's those small gestures that make the biggest difference. A text saying, "thinking of you," can pull someone out of a really lonely place.
And not expecting perfect words. Just something real. Something that says, "Hey, I see you," even if it's clumsy or short.
I love that, "I see you." That's probably the most healing thing someone can hear when they feel invisible.
Yeah, because loneliness often makes us feel like we don't matter. Like no one would notice if we disappeared for a while. But just one message, one genuine hello, reminds us we're still part of something.
It makes me wonder how many people we know are feeling this way right now. And we'd never know because they are still showing up, still posting, still smiling.
And we're doing the same, probably. We all perform a little. It's just part of how we've been conditioned to show up online. But underneath, we're craving honesty and softness.
And we shouldn't be ashamed of that. Wanting deeper connection doesn't make us needy. It makes us human.
So maybe part of healing loneliness is being okay with wanting more. Not more followers or attention, but more meaning in the relationships we already have.
Yeah, maybe we don't need a bigger circle, just a stronger one.
Exactly. One or two people you can really be yourself with are worth more than 100 shallow connections.
And the beautiful thing is, you often don't need to change your whole life to feel less lonely. Just one real conversation can shift how you feel in your body, in your heart.
Like a pause in the noise. A reminder that we're not actually as alone as we sometimes believe.
And maybe the more we create those moments for others, the more they'll come back to us, too. Not because we expect them to, but because connection tends to ripple.
It really does. Kindness, honesty, presence, they all ripple out in quiet, powerful ways.
You know what's interesting? The more honest we are about feeling lonely, the less lonely we actually become.
Right? Because the honesty itself becomes a bridge. It opens the door for someone else to say, "Me too," and suddenly, you're not in it alone anymore.
It's wild how we spend so much energy trying to look like we've got everything under control, when often what people connect to most is the exact opposite, our vulnerability.
And the truth is, being real doesn't make people run. If anything, it draws them closer. It creates this shared space where it's safe to just be.
And we need more of those spaces. Especially now. Especially when everything feels filtered, curated, always fine on the surface.
It's exhausting, isn't it? Always performing. Always feeling like you need to be something. When maybe what you really need is just to be.
And to be with someone who gets it. Even if it's messy. Especially if it's messy.
Some of the most meaningful connections I've had didn't happen when everything was going great. They happened when I was struggling and someone chose to stay.
Exactly. Loneliness doesn't always come from having no one around, it comes from feeling unseen by the people who are.
And when someone takes the time to notice you properly, not just scroll past, not just skim your update, but really see you, that's when something shifts.
And that shift can be so healing. You go from thinking, no one understands me, to maybe I'm not as alone in this as I thought.
And that changes everything. It gives you room to breathe again. To hope. To reach back out.
And the beauty of it is that you don't need to be fixed to be loved. You don't have to wait until you feel better to deserve connection.
Yes. That's such an important reminder. You're allowed to be in the middle of your mess and still be worthy of friendship, of care, of belonging.
We're all works in progress. And sometimes, what brings us together isn't the polished version of ourselves, it's the cracks, the shared ache, the quiet understanding.
And if we can lean into that instead of hiding from it, we might find the connection we've been looking for all along.
If anything we've shared today made you pause, or made you feel seen, then that's what this conversation was for.
Yeah. And if you're feeling a bit lonely right now, we just want to say, you're not broken. You're not the only one. And you don't have to go through it alone.
Connection doesn't always have to be loud or constant. Sometimes it's just knowing someone out there gets it. And we do.
We're really grateful you spent this time with us. And if it stirred something in you, maybe take a moment today to reach out to someone, genuinely. No pressure, just presence.
We'll be back soon with another conversation, but until then, be kind to yourself. You're doing better than you think.
And remember, what you don't post still matters. Especially your heart.
Thanks for listening to the British Accent Podcast.
Take care, and we'll speak soon.